wane&hollow. Cursed with a Vision presents a Carrie Lloyd Whitehouse story. Fragment 1. The Silence. For 13 years, silence had been his only companion. Not the peaceful kind, but the oppressive, crushing kind. The silence of a world forgotten, or perhaps a world that had forgotten him. The walls of his shelter creaked with the weight of time. The faint hum of the generator was the only sound reminding him he was alive. Or was he? He often wondered if the world outside still existed. The memories of bustling streets, laughter, and sunlight felt too pristine to be real. They were like artifacts in a museum, preserved but devoid of life. The past was a myth he clung to, his only refuge from the cold monotony of the present. But then she came. Fragment 2. The Spark. Her arrival was as improbable as it was transformative. He found her huddled near the perimeter fence, eyes wide with fear, her voice trembling as she asked for shelter. Against every instinct, he let her in. She brought with her a flicker of warmth, a fragile ember in his hollow existence. Her stories of the outside world, the ruins of cities, the bands of scavengers, the dying light of a collapsing sun, filled the void in his mind. He began to remember what it felt like to listen, to feel, to hope. She gave him a name for the thing that had haunted his dreams: the collapse. The event that had turned civilization to ash, scattering lives like dust on the wind. Yet, as much as her presence lit a fire within him, it also cast long shadows. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Fragment 3. The Fractures. The first time it happened, they were sitting by the generator, sharing a meal of dried rations. She laughed at something he said, and for a moment, her face blurred. He blinked, and it was clear again, but the unease lingered. "I'm fine," he told her when she asked. "Just tired." But the moments of clarity grew shorter, the gaps wider. He'd forget why he entered a room, or misplace an object he'd never touched. Worse still, he started to doubt his memories of her. Did she really laugh like that? Or was he constructing her in his mind? "I think I'm slipping," he confessed one night. She took his hand, her touch grounding him. "Then we'll hold on to each other," she whispered. "No matter what." Fragment 4. The Abyss. The world outside was as she described: desolate, broken, hollow. They ventured beyond the safety of the shelter, searching for remnants of what once was. Ruins towered like tombstones over an endless horizon, their shadows stretching long and thin under a fading sun. But as the journey continued, he began to lose himself. The shadows took on shapes he couldn't recognize, familiar but wrong. The names of streets and faces in old photographs escaped him, replaced by a suffocating void. She tried to anchor him, but the void whispered louder. Fragment 5. The Splinters. One day, he found a shattered mirror in the rubble. In its fractured surface, he saw not his reflection, but a kaleidoscope of memories, faces he couldn't name, voices he couldn't place. Her face appeared too, but it was fractured, incomplete. "Who are you?" he asked her, his voice trembling. I'm someone who cares for you." Her hesitation planted a seed of doubt. Was she real? Was anything? Fragment 6. The Flame. Despite everything, they pressed on. She carried the burden of his mind as it unraveled, holding his hand even when he forgot why hers was there. One evening, as they sat by a dying fire, he turned to her and said, "Promise me something." "Anything," she replied. "When I'm gone, when I'm truly gone, don't let the memories die with me. Keep them alive. Even if they're not real, they're all I have. I promise." Fragment 7. Wane and Hollow. By the end, he was more shadow than man. She led him to a place he swore he'd seen before, a crumbling chapel on a hill, bathed in the golden hues of twilight. "This is it," he said, though he didn't know why. They sat in silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon. When he finally closed his eyes, she stayed beside him, holding his hand long after the warmth had left it. Fragment 8. Ashes of Memory. Years later, the chapel remained, though the world around it continued to decay. Travelers spoke of finding strange carvings on the walls, names, dates, fragments of a story etched into the stone. No one knew who had carved them, but the words whispered of love, loss, and a man who had fought to hold on to himself, even as the void consumed him. Some said the carvings were a warning. Others believed they were a plea. But you, dear listener, know the truth. They were a gift, a final desperate attempt to preserve a life and a love that may never have existed at all. And now, you are the custodian of his memory. Was it real? Does it matter?